Imagine you are sitting in a quiet room and suddenly you hear someone yawn. Even if you are not tired, you might find your own mouth opening wide. Or perhaps you are in a crowded stadium and a few people start a chant. Before you know it, you are shouting along with them, feeling a strange surge of energy in your chest. We like to think of ourselves as separate islands, making our own choices and controlling our own bodies. But the truth is that we are far more like a school of fish or a flock of birds than we care to admit. We are deeply, biologically wired to mirror the people around us. Usually, this is a good thing. It helps us learn, it helps us feel empathy, and it keeps us safe. But what happens when that connection turns into a different kind of fire? What happens when a group of people starts to share a physical illness that has no medical cause? This is the mystery of how our social bonds can actually rewrite our physical reality. We are going to explore a phenomenon that many people find impossible to believe, even as it happens right in front of them. We will look at how a small town can be gripped by a physical outbreak that defies every laboratory test. We will see how our collective anxiety can manifest as real rashes, twitches, or even sounds. It is a journey into the deep web of human connection, where the line between a biological virus and a social one starts to disappear. Most importantly, we will find out why being hysterical is not just a joke or an insult, but a profound expression of how much we truly need one another. This story begins in a place that feels familiar to almost everyone. A small town where everyone knows everyone else. A place where high school sports and school hallways are the center of the universe. In a setting like this, the social fabric is very tight. When one person feels something, the vibration travels through the whole community. In 2011, this town faced a crisis that left doctors and parents spinning in circles. It started with a single student and ended with dozens of girls suffering from severe physical symptoms. They checked the water. They checked the air. They even checked the products people were using. They looked for poison and they looked for bacteria. But the more they looked at the physical world, the more they missed the social one. We often live in a world that separates the mind from the body. We think of our thoughts as one thing and our muscles as another. But this event forced an entire community to realize that our bodies can sometimes tell stories that our words are not yet ready to speak. On the surface, we tend to believe that if someone is sick, there must be a visible, organic reason for it. This is the surface concept of modern medicine. We think that every symptom must have a matching germ or a broken bone. If you have a cough, it is a virus. If you have a twitch, it is a neurological disorder. We look at a group of students and assume that if they are all shaking at the same time, they must have all eaten the same bad food or breathed the same toxic fumes. On the surface, the solution to an outbreak is always a chemical test. We want to find a substance to blame. We look for heavy metals in the blood or mold in the ceilings. This surface view is very comforting because it suggests that we can just clean the school and the problem will go away. It tells us that our bodies are just machines and if a part starts clicking, we just need to find the grit in the gears. We assume that if a doctor says it is in your head, they are saying the illness is fake. This surface understanding makes us feel like we have to choose between a physical truth and a total lie. Behind this surface view lies a hidden assumption that we are fully independent individuals. We often assume that our physical health is something that happens only within our own skin. But the hidden truth is that our nervous systems are constantly talking to the people around us. We assume that hysteria is an old-fashioned word used to dismiss women. While the word does have a dark and sexist history, the hidden reality is that the phenomenon it describes is a real, documented part of human biology. It is a hidden logic that shows how the mind can use the body to express a stress that is too heavy to carry. We assume that if an illness has no organic cause, the person must be making it up for attention. The hidden reality is that mass psychogenic illness is a rapid spread of symptoms that the person cannot control. Their muscles are moving, their hearts are racing, and their pain is real, even if the MRI is clear. There is a hidden assumption that technology, like body cameras, only records the truth. But the hidden reality is that technology can actually become a bridge for the contagion. It allows us to see the symptoms of someone far away, which can trigger our own mirror neurons. This hidden connectivity means that a small town outbreak can now become a global one through the power of a screen. This leads us to a structural pattern of how we process collective trauma. We see a pattern where mass illness often breaks out at the fissures or stress points of a society. It happens when people are under a kind of pressure that they cannot escape or even name. For example, after the events of September 11, hundreds of children across the country developed mystery rashes. There was no chemical reason for the skin to turn red. But the structural pattern shows that the rash appeared right as the news began reporting on the fear of toxic mail. The body was literally reacting to the fear in the air. We see another structural pattern in specific social groups, like police officers or nuns. In these groups, the identity of the individual is wrapped up in the identity of the group. If one person falls, the structure of the group dictates that others might follow. This is not a failure of character, it is a structural byproduct of intense human bonding. We see this even in the way police officers react to certain drugs. Even when medical experts say a drug cannot be absorbed through the skin, the structural expectation of danger causes the body to shut down as if it were poisoned. The pattern is clear: the more we are connected by a shared fear or a shared identity, the more likely we are to catch each other's physical expressions of that reality. We can reframe our entire perspective by seeing these outbreaks not as hysteria, but as an extreme form of empathy. Instead of seeing a group of twitching students as a medical failure, we can reframe it as a powerful sign of how much they belong to one another. We can reframe the diagnosis from "it is all in your head" to "it is all in our connections." This perspective shift allows us to stop looking for a bad batch of tampons and start looking at the emotional weight a community is carrying. We can reframe the idea of a contagion to include joy as well as pain. Think about how a laugh spreads through a room. It is the same mechanism. When we reframe our view, we see that the symptoms are not the problem, they are a signal. They are a signal that the social environment is under too much stress. This shift in thinking takes the shame away from the victims. It turns them from crazy people into highly sensitive barometers of our shared culture. They are the ones who show us where the cracks in our world are getting too wide. Applying this to your daily life starts with recognizing your own susceptibility to the people around you. You can apply the principle of emotional hygiene by noticing when you are picking up the stress of your coworkers or your family. If your partner comes home angry and you feel your own chest tighten, that is the beginning of the same process. You can apply the lesson of the fissures by looking for the stress points in your own life. Are you expressing your anxiety through a headache or a back pain that doctors cannot explain? Sometimes the body is trying to speak because you are not listening to your mind. Apply the idea of line of sight by being careful about what you consume on social media. If you watch videos of panic or anger all day, your body may start to mirror those physical states. You can also apply the beautiful side of this connection, like the students who went to a specialized camp where they could share their symptoms freely. Apply this by finding your people where you can be your true, messy self without judgment. If we can pick up each other's pain, we can also pick up each other's comfort. In your own home, try to start a contagion of calm. See how a slow, deep breath can influence the person sitting across from you. When we look deeply at these stories, we see that the human experience is not something that happens in a vacuum. We are constantly absorbing the world around us. We are moving from a world where we think we are in total control to a world where we realize we are part of a larger, living system. The girls in that small town were not broken, they were just very closely connected. Their bodies were acting out a play that the whole community was feeling. This reminds us that we have a responsibility to keep our social air clean. If we fill our world with fear and suspicion, our bodies will eventually pay the price. But if we fill our world with understanding and connection, we can turn the same hysteria into a form of healing. We are all walking through the halls of a metaphorical high school, looking at each other for cues on how to feel. We are all tick shopping in a way, choosing which emotions and reactions to adopt. The power of mass hysteria is simply the power of the human bond turned up to a level that science cannot always measure. It is a reminder that we are never truly alone, even in our suffering. Think about the last time you felt a sudden change in your mood because of the person you were talking to. Was it a physical change? Did your shoulders drop or did your heart beat faster? We often ignore these small signals, but they are the quiet versions of the mystery outbreaks. We need to learn how to believe in these connections because they are the foundation of our humanity. When we stop being afraid of the messiness of human psychology, we can start to actually care for the social body. We can look at the person next to us and realize that their well-being is directly tied to our own. This is the great truth that the town of Leroy unintentionally taught us. Their struggle was a mirror for the rest of us. It showed us that no matter how much we try to be individuals, we are always breathing the same social air. We are always one step away from catching the same feeling. And in a world that can often feel cold and disconnected, perhaps the most important thing we can do is embrace the fact that we are all, in some way, caught in a beautiful and sometimes terrifying contagion of being alive. If you were to look at the people you spend the most time with, what physical habits or moods are you shopping from them without even realizing it?